Hey everyone, welcome back to another In the Wolves Den motor vlog. And today I want to be talking to you about something sadly I think very few people understand and know, which is the differences between bivocational and vocational ministry. And I'm not just talking about calling, because there are people who are called to full-time ministry or vocational ministry, and there are those who are called to full-time bivocational ministry, or in other words, they work for the church, but they don't receive a check from the church. They receive money through a secular job. Now, my church, Meeting House Church, is very unique in this because we have a pastoral staff which is 5 pastors right now. One of which, our lead pastor, is full-time, meaning he receives his money from the church. His income is from the church. He receives a little bit from the denomination for being a catalyst. Well, that's actually his official title, the catalyst for church planting in the area. And then the worship pastor and the youth pastor both are paid part-time. In other words, they receive a certain amount of their income from the church, and they need to have a second source of income to meet their needs. And then bivocational is the executive pastor and myself, and we both work jobs. I just finally got full-time at my job, and the executive pastor works another job, a full-time job. But we should be putting in time for our duties at the church, which is usually supposed to be a minimum of 20 hours. And in most cases, that actually exceeds itself in both the executive pastor and my role as a pastor at the church. So, I guess I don't really have to explain to you how the lead pastor getting paid. Vocational ministry is something where, excuse me, I'm fighting a cold right now, but vocational ministry is something where the pastor will be paid by the church, excuse me, paid by the church, has a salary, and puts in a minimum of 40 hours a week. Usually, in most cases, for most churches, the pastor puts in maybe 60 or more hours because of hospital visits or just meeting with people. Sometimes they have scheduled meetings with members of the congregation or leaders within the congregation, but there are those emergency calls, there are those situations where they need to go to the hospital, just different things that can come up. So when people say full-time vocational ministry, usually the preface is saying 40 hours minimum, because that's what a full-time job usually is 40 hours a week. And that's basically how you would look at it. Now, you can kind of, this is the interesting situation with our part-time staff. We can consider them paid part-time staff, but in most cases of paid part-time staff, they can still be considered bivocational, because most of the time, and I know this with our pastors, most of the time they also have a second part-time job to help make ends meet. And now I'm not going to go into specifics with those two, because they are friends, and that's private. But I can say that the hours can get ridiculous too for paid part-time staff. In one case, I know of a pastor who's paid part-time by his church, and he still puts in about 40 to 60 hours a week himself for the part-time job. The church is in no way near being able to pay him, but it's just, pay him a full-time salary, but it's just that the amount of work he does and what he does, some people would say, well, why can't they find people to take things from him? And speaking from my own experience as a bivocational pastor, in most cases it's very difficult to find people who have the time or the passion to do certain things within the needs of a church that sometimes go outside of ministry sometimes, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but it can be like website development, it can be audio visual, it can be graphic designs, stuff like that people may not even know how to do. It's a specific niche, and in a lot of the bigger, larger churches, even the mega churches, they actually have staff on their payroll that just does that. Like they'll come in and they've gone to school, or they've learned just from their own life how to make and edit videos, and that's why you see some shiny TV production. They do sometimes hire production crews to do that, but for a smaller church, if you're doing graphics and stuff, it does add up. If you're doing like bulletins and everything, you need to have a secretary, but sometimes even the secretary's jobs have changed. A lot of churches have done away with secretaries, and usually one or two or three of the pastors, in some cases I know of, have taken up a lot of that secretarial role. So it does become an interesting fact of how paid part-time vocational ministry or bivocational ministry does come in play. And so that's one thing to remember. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because a lot of churches want to be active. They want to be a part of like the pastor's Bible study. They want to do a lot of things with the pastor. And the thing we tend to forget is that the pastor has a family. He has a wife. He has children. And he is going to want to spend time with his family and his children. And so that's why a lot of churches have gone ahead and they have a pastoral staff with a mixture of vocational and bivocational pastors to help meet those needs within the congregation. In the regards of bivocational ministry, now I don't think this goes beyond any kind of sharing point, because this is actually one of those mentor lessons that my pastor mentor, who I've had for about 20 years now, and he is the executive pastor of my church. He's been a part of my life for a while, and at one time he went and he was the interim pastor of a church in the city of Quincy, and in doing so, he let it be known that part of a problem that had arisen within that church was that they didn't understand the idea of bivocational ministry, and so they looked at him as a vocational minister. They scheduled him for things that he could not do because of his work, or things that he needed to do because, life happens and there are deaths within a church, but he had to take personal time from work in order to fulfill those things. And so that's always a thing within bivocational ministry that happens. And while a lot of pastors and churches want to have a vocational minister, somebody that they have at their call, who's paid and at their ready each and every day. The thing is, and what's growing, and there's a number of articles out there talking about the growing need for bivocational pastors in churches because of income problems and other necessities that come up. I guess the thing to say is that within bivocation, you're actually doing two jobs full time. You are really doing your full-time work as a pastor of the church, and you are doing your full-time secular job to meet your needs and the needs of your family. Now, let me preface this and say I am in no way trying to cry or whine or anything. As a bivocational pastor, I understand this. When I first decided to become bivocational years ago, I had wanted to eventually become a vocational minister, and that is still my goal, is to find a church that needs a vocational minister, and whether that means that I take a job as a bivocational pastor in the meantime for that congregation and help them get to a point where they could pay me full time. That's something many pastors do over time. But what I'm trying to explain here for everyone is, and this is where I want to focus a little bit more, is really the I guess I could say it's really kind of the meat of it is where I know, and that is bivocational ministry. And bivocational ministry, as even my pastor, the lead pastor of my church, has discovered, is very time consuming. Now, I could sit there and go into the hours of one of the paid part-time guys, like I said, and it's I just want to say it's kind of ridiculous, the amount of hours he puts in. And I'm not saying this to kind of badmouth or anything. It's actually, I'm good friends with him. I love him. We have a good relationship, a good working relationship together. And that is the thing, is that it's a sad notion that people do not understand the amount of time that he puts in to his job, the hours that he puts in, and the time away from his family that he puts in doesn't really get noted. It's known to God, it's known to members of the staff, but that is something that we all who are called to ministry do take into account. And that's one thing that happens with me. With me, I have had days where I have worked till 5 o'clock and then gone over to the church to do stuff and not come home till 11 o'clock at night. And, that's just the call. I have had weeks where I've worked 40 hours a week and then about 35, 40 more hours in the pastorate. So, it does happen. And that is one of the dangers some people will say about bivocational ministry, is that it doesn't always give us who are in ministry the time we need to be with our families, to strengthen our marriages, other things. And that's why I think it's good that we have pastors' conferences and other conferences out there for pastors and their families. But at the same time, it's kind of a sad thing that churches don't know the sacrifice that goes on with their whole staff. They just look at the pastor, the lead pastor. They don't understand that there are men who are equally sacrificing out there. Now, like I said, I'm not saying this to woe is me type thing. It's I was called to ministry. I was affirmed in ministry by many men, and I do it with a passion, to serve my Lord and Savior, a passion to serve the people, a passion to see souls brought to a saving foundation of, within Christ. But at the same time, bivocational ministry is something that not many are called to because of that call, that hardship, if you will, that we all take. Take today. Like right now, I am on my way over to the church to look up stuff. I woke up this morning at 7:30. I have been doing work at my house in my home office. Today is my off day from my secular job. I am going to be working full-time beginning February 29th at that job. And so I'm trying to get a few loose ends that I know need to be fixed in the meantime. And here's where we go. Here's where we kind of come into that is like my last one-on-one meeting with my pastor. My pastor, had said that there are things that he knows I am doing that, add to the hours I'm working. And one of the things that we're trying to do is find staff that can do this, or people within the church that would take over some of the things that go on. And now that's not saying that I do my job bad. I do everything as if I'm doing it for Christ. I'm not perfect. There are times I screw up. There are times I've screwed up at my regular job. We're not perfect human beings. But, like I said, I do this out of a passion. I've had, on a field to ministry, a call to ministry that I've had since I was 16 years old. But, here we are now in Middleborough, and we're coming close to where the church is. And, this is like a little 20-minute drive or so to the church. And I don't mind it because I get to do this, talking to you guys. I get to pray at times to God. I'll listen to sermons or other things that help me reflect and refocus on God. But, those are the things that some people would probably not even focus on. That pastors need to do too. But it's a good thing to see how we all are trying to serve, and within bivocational ministry, part of the call is that we um, you know we've made the choice, or in some cases I guess you could say the choice was made for us by the Holy Spirit. But we we want to see growth. We want to see people grow in their passion. Like here we are. There's Meeting House on the right. Um, we want to see people grow in their passion and their love for Christ. And in many cases, it happens. In many cases, it has been one of these things where we are sitting here and trying to just put our heads together and our minds together for the Lord. One of the things that's happened since I took this job, I'm not able to be at all the staff meetings. It's a sacrifice I've had to make because at times I feel like I'm getting disconnected from the call of ministry here at the church because I'm not involved in all the decision making as much, even though through modern technology we have emails, we have voicemail, we have even video conferencing in some cases, though we've never really tried a video conference. But that's one of the things is there are small sacrifices we even have to do, and there are things that end up needing to be prayed over. If you're going to go into bivocational ministry, like I said, it's not for everyone. I know I've felt a call to full-time ministry for some time, and so as my wife and as I began working at this new job, we began to pray that over the next year God would open up our eyes to His vision, not ours. I don't want to. I don't want it to be that full-time ministry is something that Don McKinnon wants to do, because Don McKinnon wants it. I want it to be that Don McKinnon is called to full-time ministry because the Lord has called him to it. So that's one thing that we're doing. We're praying about it and we're seeking God's vision for it at this time. But that's it. So it probably kind of went off a rabbit trail, but it was kind of like letting you know the difference between bivocational and vocational ministry. Both of them, you're putting in 40 plus hours a week. It's just within one of them, if you're putting in 60, 70, 80 hours a week, that's all to the church. In the other one, if you're putting in 60, 70, 80 hours a week, half of it is your vocational job, the other half is your call to ministry. And that, it does add up. And, like I said, sadly, people don't understand, but in the end, the only one that counts is God. And I know that as many times as I've put in hours and struggled to just get an hour with my wife on some weeks, I've been able to build up treasure in heaven. And my marriage is still in a good spot, and I have to thank again having that pastor, our executive pastor, be a mentor. He and his wife both mentored my wife and I before our marriage, and they've mentored us at times through our marriage. And I give a lot of credit to them through their examples and just living a life that we want to live, and seeing and hearing their own struggles. It's just one of those things. So that's it. that's it today for this vlog, and I hope to see you all back here. If you liked what you heard, saw, then please subscribe and give this video a like, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.